stopping by and joining me. Obviously, we're just going live basically right now. It's pretty late. I just got done tonight. Just got done playing some D&D. We do a twice a month, every other week, do a session with coworkers, former coworkers that we've been doing for a while. It was a really good D&D session, and I was kind of thinking I would do some late night gaming, play some more New World, especially play New World with, you know, I have a newer friend in my LARP. We have things called fighting companies, and one of my new comrades in that we're going to play some New World. I think we're going to do that tomorrow, just because I want to spend some time after D&D and kind of a really long set of days just watching TV with my partner. But I did want to like I'm not going to force myself to hit goals just to hit goals, but I do like to still be able to try my best to meet goals that I set for myself. I'm editing the stream info, so I'm looking away from the camera. And I'm writing right now. Why is ADHD a superpower? Because that's talking about being a gamer with ADHD. All right. Just wanted to update the stream because I realized I forgot to do that before I went live. But yeah, so just kind of taking some time to have a really quick chat. And I know doing kind of two chats in a row, like this isn't going to just be the sort of channel that is um, just going to be like talking about things and stuff like that. It's not a just talking channel. Really, this was just more for me to still be able to stream tonight, say hi to y'all, especially when I said I would be on this evening. So yeah, after we had a really good session with D&D, I just kind of start with that. Um, it was one of those sessions with yeah, nothing wrong with the just talk job. I'm not. I am by no means saying there's anything wrong with a just talking channel. I think more my point about it is if I do just talking too many times in a row, I don't want people to think like I've just decided to only do that. I still definitely. Oh, I just ramble too, Beta Welsh. That's what it says. Like I still intend to game, but I mean, my streaming is rambling. It's it's what we're going to talk about tonight. Is uh, ADHD, but yeah. So after playing some D&D, but it's kind of just stuck with me. Is I updated my bio when we were after we were done talking last night when I was talking about the future of the channel, and I got asked a question by somebody who's not really familiar with ADHD outside of like what you hear in the news, the kind of common expectations of what that means, and said, "How is AD&D a superpower?" And like they didn't mean anything by it. It wasn't being like, "Oh, super rude," like mocking. It was just more like when something's referred to for so long as a disorder and you know, all treated as a bad thing, it's hard to be like, why would somebody think your superpower is having ADHD? Um, and so I wanted to like, yeah, I've been thinking about an answer. I'm definitely to the point like I was drafting out earlier this morning before I took a nap, like I'm gonna make that a video. But yeah, but not just, but I might as well do a chat about it as well. Something, I can have kind of as a basis for that video and also for people to see some clips of on the channel here. So why I call ADHD a superpower is for the longest time it was something that, you know, A, I didn't know what it was. You, especially when I initially got diagnosed, it was something like this big scary thing like Ritalin is horrible. You had Jesse Spano on an old show called Saved by the Bell, which I believe you can catch on streaming, you know, taking these horrible pills that, are bad. And then there was like this big news crisis manufactured about your kid might be misdiagnosed. So I was diagnosed, then I wasn't diagnosed. And then I'm not hyperactive, so I don't have it. So I spent a lot of my life going back and forth, but even once it was diagnosed, I kind of shied away from talking about it, admitting I had it, and just finding ways to kind of cope with it instead of learning why I behave the way I behave and how to really, use that to my advantage, which is what the neurodiversity movement is really all about. Um, and it really is an advantage because when it comes to ADHD, one of the big parts of it is uh, the H. And for me, the H is hyperfocus. That's why they no longer diagnose ADD and ADHD. It's all ADHD because there's a lot of different things the H can be. Whereas I do fidget a bit and things like that. It's nowhere near like the disruptive kid that they showed on the news in early 2000s. It's now actually it's that hyper focus. And I've always been like workaholic, or in my LARP, I would put all of my eggs in one basket, things like that, because I can hyper focus. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But as I learned, about ADHD and how to use that, it becomes this really kind of competitive advantage I work in tech in the field I work in to be able to turn it on. Like I can't just turn hyper focus off, but as long as I'm applying it to the things I want to do, I give attention to details that no one else does on the same level. And I spend a lot of time, and instead of what I used to do, mulling over horrible, like anxiety things in my brain over and over and over and over, I can instead let that problem go through my brain over. And it doesn't take away from my ability to do the other things I want or need or would like to do. It's kind of like a multi-core processor in your PC. Like that core is going around and around while I'm doing other things until it kind of clicks, finishes processing, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's how I'll approach this. Yeah, all the threads. Um, and another thing is ADHD is a lot of why like I like to talk a lot. I like to tell stories. A big part of that is with ADHD. I think a lot about all the different ways someone might take what I say, all the different ways they might have questions, and I try to pre-answer questions, and that can be negative to some people when you're like they ask a simple question and next thing you know my partner's asked me a really simple question and I've had to explain for 32 minutes something they already know. Now I'm sitting here mansplaining things they know better than me. They sometimes things they taught me because I think to answer I have to do all that. But by rolling that back and applying that to storytelling, to gaming, it gives me the skill set that with streaming, with YouTube, with storytelling at LARP to answer all the questions that people might have and find all those kind of missing little pieces in a story where people might go, oh, that's a plot hole, or you missed talking about that. So then applying it towards those things again makes it a superpower. And I really like the term superpower because everybody thinks differently. Even neurotypical people, two of them are not going to learn the same way. They're not going to think the exact same way. But then when you take somebody with ADHD and apply them to situations, especially situations that fall within their strengths where it can be a superpower, you take an autistic person and you apply them to somewhere where, you know, their neurodivergent mind becomes a superpower. And since I didn't prepare for this chat, I'm just kind of talking about it. There is a lot of stuff. You just search neurodiversity, you'll see them. But we had a really awesome lecturer come in um, at the place I work back when it wasn't COVID. Um, and they talked about it. And the speaker comes in, runs the company, and 90% of the people they hire are autistic. And it's because the work they do, the way an autistic person approaches that, especially if they can work from home and other things like that, makes them so much more efficient. Um, and that's the other part of it being a superpower is instead of everybody has to be the jack of all trades, oh, you can't just do that. The job entails one, two, three, four, five things. Maybe instead of hiring five people to all do 20% of those five things, you hire five people, one who can focus on each of those things. And obviously that doesn't work for everything, but it's a great way to start applying things. So now all of a sudden you have neurodivergent people, you have people with ADHD, people who are autistic, people, all sorts of different pathways when it comes to neurodiversity, who then, instead of being stuck at home, not being able to work when they want to work, can apply themselves to to these jobs, and actually, like statistics show, perform even better than the standard model. And that's what it's about. Neurodiversity is not about like making things, you know, different for the sake of making them different. It's like all these people have different ways of thinking about things. We stop growing, we stop evolving the minute, we assume the way we're doing things is the right way. And so why don't we take a look if we can't do things better, make it better for more people, but also just in all better for the work involved. When it comes to like Twitch streaming, this isn't a job, not for me. Like, I mean, there is a small percentage of people really apply themselves and put in the work, put in the effort, and definitely make this a career. And there's people aspiring to make this a career who definitely will make this a career. For me, it's more of it's a hobby sort of thing. Like I really like the connection with people. I like honestly the ability to be ADHD, but in a way that actually suits what I'm doing. So for me, I'm not viewing it as like I'm going to make this my big break, but more as oh, this is a hobby I love, gaming, that now I can apply myself to, and being hyper focused, especially when it comes down to like editing a video is something like hours and hours and hours for minutes of footage put together. But with hyper focus, that is a good use of my skills. Thinking about things 20 different ways, that's a good use of my skills. Being able to talk even when people aren't talking to you, when people are just watching you, that's a good skill to have. And there's my partner in the background. There's Juicebox grabbing their purse. Didn't set up any of my screens. So, and that kind of brings me to like the final thing I was hoping to talk about tonight, which is, yeah, Beta Welsh. Sorry about that. I just installed Nightbot today, Beta Welsh, and I forgot that I added that, and to kind of like put that in the rules about like the things it does or change the things it does. It's just kind of stock in there. I meant to edit that before I used it. I didn't realize that was going to do that. So yeah, I give you all caps. It's gonna do that. Like, so sorry about that. But yeah, with gaming, the reason I wanted to talk about gaming when it comes to uh, yeah, it's pretty funny. When it comes to ADHD, it's not just the streaming thing, but how gaming affects people positively, how it has a positive effect on people who are neurodivergent, but also how people who are neurodivergent, you know, have a positive effect on gaming spaces. Like I said, my ADHD helps me out in the streaming sense, uh, but also like gaming gave me an outlet. I could play an RPG for hours, get super drawn into the story, start thinking about, oh, what's going on here, what's going to happen next, or apply myself to a really tough game. Um, oh, really? Awesome, Winter Star. thanks for thanks for stopping in. And it's yeah, have ADHD also. Yeah, that's really it's really great. I mean, I guess that's sometimes weird to say, but glad you stopped by, and I'm glad you're here chatting. Great to see you. But so yeah, gaming for me, yeah, like it helped me deal with that. Or if I was kind of spinning my wheels, or you know, so for me, bouncing off the walls isn't always bouncing off the walls. Even when I was younger, it was trapped. Like, do I want to do this? But if I do this, I can't do that. It's like this like insane level of FOMO where I can't um, figure out what to do, but I could always be like, well, I can't figure out what to do. I don't know if I want to go to my buddy's house. I don't know if I want to go walk in the woods for a while. I don't know if I want to watch this a movie because there's too many movies to choose from. Um, and I say too many movies, but this was well before streaming services. Now that's a whole other story. But I could just turn on my Super Nintendo. I could plug in a cartridge, and you know all those different paths I wasn't doing would shut off because I was in that world of the game. And also through gaming, I met people, and was able to start kind of branching out. I've never been one. It was hard to make social connections because, especially when you're younger and you're not sure what's going on, you're the weird kid. You're the kid who talks too much. Um, you're the kid who rambles on about something none of the other kids care about. And I'm sometimes still the the adult where someone goes mentions something I'm into passively, and I'm like, well, we have about a 2 hour story. Let me tell you about this subject. You totally do that, but I was, yeah. And then so yeah, but then I was able to start forming these connections. Honestly, everybody games. I know there's some people who aren't into video gaming, but so many people game, and we're seeing that now as time's gone on, just kind of like used to be bad to be a nerd, but now nerds rule the world is one of the things I've heard. Same with gaming. There's so many types of games, and like you have games on your phone, and I'm not one of those people to be like this type of game's not a game. Like yeah, my mom, who is not a gamer, my mom never sat down at the Super Nintendo with me and played some Mario Brothers. Never shot a bunch of aliens on Halo with me, never put blocks on the ground in Minecraft or anything like that. Was supportive of me, but wasn't a gamer. Is now a gamer because of mobile games, and gets it on another level. So gaming brings people together, and especially for that weird person, that weird kid who talks too much. All of a sudden, that weird kid who talks too much is super focused on a game with you and is willing to just play GoldenEye with you for 24 hours straight because I might be hyper focusing and my friend might be neurotypical, but we're both at the same state when it comes to grabbing that N64 and shooting each other in GoldenEye, which is amazing. Just, that's really fair. Yeah, and that's actually it's pretty wonderful that um, you kind of got to a place where your brain and just everything you've learned, you can regulate that winter star. And you don't need to take a medication anymore. There's definitely been times when I feel that way, and then I would go off my medication, and it would get so much worse for me. But I always love to hear when people, um, don't have to take medication if they don't want to. Part of mine is also I have acute anxiety, and so part of the same medication I take for ADHD affects that because they're so interconnected. Um, but yeah, stress is still a that's a hard one to get around when it comes to ADHD, to a lot of different forms of neurodiversity. And so, and yeah, and when it comes to that also, yeah, I guess that's the ADHD brain. Like we're gonna segue real quick to the medication. Uh, I call it a conundrum. It's like, some people need medication, others get to a point where they don't need medication. Um, and it's great when people get to a point where they don't need medication, or if people don't want to take certain medications, and that's perfectly fine. That's, their choice when it comes to those sorts of medications. Like it's not live or die, safety of other people sort of thing. Um, like if they're like me and the medication is still needed. But there was also this pressure I felt on me because they referred to it as like a disease, a disorder. Like it's something I'm going to live with from, even if it lessens and I get to a point where I'm just having stress. But like you said, even off medication, you still have stress. Winter Star is, if it's a disease, if it's a disorder, then there's got to be a cure. And then I started feeling like, oh, thanks for following GC Blinks. Um, I start feeling like I'm not getting better. What's wrong with me? And that's a whole nother pathway kind of to go down with ADHD. And again, that's why I'm a big advocate for neurodiversity. And talking about neurodiversity is to get away from treating people like they're sick. If they don't get better, there's something wrong. If their brains don't start working exactly like a neurotypical's brain, then uh, there's something wrong. And I'm really happy to have this kind of movement we have going on now, where we're learning more about that. We're getting that information out there. There is really good groups out there, and I'm going to actually end up putting some in the description of my channel, some kind of neurodiversity links, because there's also some not so great um, charities out there that you their names make you sound good. But I'm going to put some of those in uh, my page description. So if people are interested in learning materials or helping out, they have the means to do that. And at some point, I think we'll do a probably do some form of a charity stream, or maybe just not a charity stream, maybe just have that as something people can donate to in the future. But for now, I think it's going to um, just at least provides people with that information and keep doing these, put videos out on the topic. Um, so and then so people know how I got back there. So looping back because the threads never closed. Looping back to the why gaming was such an important part of my life as somebody with ADHD is I made connections with people, and then even though I still had ADHD, I was still that weird person, for lack of a better term, because didn't have the terminology for it. We bonded to a point where I was just Locke, and my friends were just my friends, and it stopped being, you know, like we broke down the wall. 'Cause a lot of times the walls between people who are neurodivergent and people are neurotypical, or even people are neurodivergent with other people are neurodivergent, a lot of times that wall we face is the connection. Like once you can get past like, oh, there's something wrong with them. Oh, they do this. Like, and you have that mutual interest, then that just becomes part of who they are. And so gaming is something I've seen not just for myself, but for so many other people in my life, around the internet. I've been really inspired by other streamers, other content creators, people in other fields of business, being able to put that out there. And so it really helps. And just to kind of catch up on what's in chat real quick. Hey, thanks for downloading the app and giving me a watch while. I really appreciate it. All right, so yeah, that's actually another really great thing to talk about. Uh, Hola, Eris. Another thing to talk about when it comes to medication is that's something that I think people who aren't dealing with finding medications, talking to prescribers and therapists and stuff like that don't realize is the metaphor I like to use is, um, and it's because I heard it from a doctor I had, is if I drive a Toyota pickup, someone else drives a Toyota pickup, and both of them have something we're not quite sure what's wrong with it, and we take it to a shop can diagnose it, go, this is what's wrong, and fix it. It's going to be true of all 1986 Toyota pickups. I don't know why I chose Toyota pickup out of all the vehicles I could have, but the point being is like there's a clear way to fix it with the human mind, even if there's symptoms that are shared and there's chemical imbalances that are shared that cause myself to have ADHD and Winterstar to have ADHD. There's not like, let's flip the repair manual over to apparently the 86 Toyota pickup is the official vehicle of ADHD. Maybe. uh, maybe. But yeah, we can both have ADHD, but since there's no like repair manual, they have to prescribe it, and you have to sometimes medications don't work. I was on Wellbutrin, and Wellbutrin did the opposite it was supposed to do, and then I was on a different medication. I was on Vyvanse, and at first Vyvanse was amazing, and then it wasn't. It was exactly what you're describing when sorry, it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. Um, and also just again because we're not an 86 pickup truck, the truth is, and it's a chemical thing, a lot of this is that causes these things like are when it comes to ADHD specifically, like there's a lot of various like neurodivergent things that are not necessarily chemical amounts. But with ADHD, it is a chemical thing because our bodies change. Like that's why people can get adult onset ADHD. That's why people who um, had depression can stop having it. I think that's why people think you can get over it or get cured, but it does happen, and that's really super great that that it did. And sometimes our brains do evolve, and as we grow and get to a point where, yeah, I'm not sure. Again, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not about to pretend to be one either. Um, I don't know if it's chemicals changing. I don't know if it's we as people, some of us pick up and like start getting those like skills, but whatever it is, it yeah, it definitely can change. And I was the same way, not with ADHD, but with I also am a migraine headache sufferer, like really bad. Have to go to the hospital when I was younger and get shots of morphine migraines. And I thought, oh, I'm this is my life. And middle school and high school, I would go to the nurse's office once or twice a week to the point I had to suffer through classes with migraines until like my parents came down to school because they thought I was trying to get out of classes to take my migraine medications. And then something happened in my early 20s, where I was getting a couple a year, and now I have had them recently, and I feel like now there's certain things as I get older and my body's on the downslope, uh, where now I have to watch what I eat or I'll set them off. But there was this like huge window where I had like a couple within like the span of like 6 years. So yeah, and I again, Winter Star, that's actually a really good point. And I'm glad you actually called that out because sometimes I'm working off of very old information. Because I was diagnosed and told I didn't have it when I was in my teens. And then they originally diagnosed me again with it in my 20s. And they said, oh, no, you didn't have it as in your teens. That's why you didn't need the medicine for the rest of yours. And it was adult onset. And actually, you're right. Now it's back to that thing I was talking about. The H is different now. Like we understand that's not always hyperactive. Um, Not always hyperactive. It can be hyper focused. So actually, I'm really glad you called that out because I was walking down one of those ADHD highways where if you didn't call it out, I would have been like off stream, and like 10 minutes later, I would have been like, do I do another stream? Do I post somewhere? I said some incorrect information. Of super. That's awesome. Also, Eris is God. That's really great. So you no, you're right. It wouldn't set on when I was 25. That's yeah. So thank you again. Really, I really do mean it. Thanks for calling that out. So I do. I could talk about this forever, and I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to put out a YouTube video on it, maybe even a series on it. Depends. I did a lot of searching on YouTube. I did find some really great videos that use gaming as neuro divergent learning tools, like how Stardew Valley and how it's built can be really actually great for people with sort of neurodivergent ways of thinking because the routines and stuff that's built into it and all that sort of things. And that was a really informative channel. And then I found some one-off podcasts on the subject, but I didn't find a lot of resources about it when it came to the gaming space. Um, so I'm going to put out some videos, and I don't know if I'll do that on my channel. My channel currently has no videos, but I am working on videos for that. Or if I'll make a completely separate channel for it. I have started talking to some people, other people, and Winterstar, if you're interested, um, I've started talking to people about putting together a podcast. Not something I necessarily do on this channel, although definitely always going to talk about it because ADHD is part of my life. But maybe putting together a podcast, a network, something, not something for the sake of like building a brand around it, but just kind of building a podcast around neurodiversity in gaming. Because I only found like one podcast that kind of did something with it, but they didn't really push it. And I think maybe doing a series, having a podcast, having gamers, whether they want to be involved all the time or just do occasional episodes, get that information out there. Especially like there's also game creators, there's indie developers I talk to that are neurodivergent, and talk about how that's affected their making games. I think in a gaming space that could be something that's super helpful. And obviously it's a lot of irons in a fire. That's why I love the octopus and consider myself one in some ways. Got to have 8 different tentacles to be able to handle all those irons and those fires. But I definitely think that's something that I'm going to put effort into and work on. So, and to yeah, I'd also rather be born with and have people notice the symptoms. I unfortunately went through, and that's why I misspoke earlier. I unfortunately went through the um, ADHD ADD phase was new. So like I'm in the back half of my 30s. I'm 37, so damn near, as I like to say, damn near a boomer. I'm 37, so I went through all the scare era and it being a new thing era, and we didn't know the symptoms era. Just kind of like being genderqueer, we didn't have the terms, and so all these things like you know, it was kind of like uh, people weren't able to catch us. It was almost like I wasn't born with it except went through it. So, now that we know the symptoms and stuff, I agree. Like I'd rather have it be caught early, just so like hey, you're neurodivergent. Here's some things we can do to try to help you, and here's some great games, and here's some great things we can do. And oh yeah, let's approach your learning like this. You have ADHD, so this is how we'll approach your learning because this style of learning doesn't work for you, but this style does. And even for neurotypical people, I think we should approach learning like that. I think we should cater it more to people and how they learn. And Eris has got you're also done to talk about it. That's awesome. Yeah, I think I'll definitely put fillers out um, on social media, maybe in some other chats and places. And also, if anybody's interested, just like send me a message. Like you can do it over pretty much anything. Ends up always being my segue into mentioning my social media. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to push that down anybody's throat. I am at Loctavian00, and if you had a hashtag 0001 on Discord on like everything, and I'm just throwing that out there. So if people do want to talk, honestly, if you just want to talk about it even on off time, if you just want to have a conversation, I love to learn from others, and I love to talk about these things and help people have a better understanding and try to figure out how to do it. And BetaWest has also have a Discord server, and the links in the description of the channel. Um, and it's really small right now. Obviously, my stream's small, community's small, but it's also a place like I'm definitely creating a space that is um, diverse and inclusive, but also really does have a place to talk about and allow people who are neurodivergent to do so without some of the ridicule and misunderstandings and stuff that doesn't get caught on other communities sometimes. Not all other communities, but there are some. But I have it's about 32 minutes, and I am really bad about promising my partner that we will watch TV or do something, and I'll say 1 more minute, and 1 more minute turns into 2 more hours, 3 more hours, and then they're going to bed, and I'm like, oh, it's been a minute for me, so I want to try to be good. um, Really do appreciate everybody watching the stream. Really appreciate everybody talking. Also, Eris is God and Winterstar, thank you both so much for sharing. I know sometimes sharing in a space around people who might not always handle it, you're not sure how they're going to handle it, can sometimes be a scary thing. So I want to really also say thanks both of you for being willing to share. And yeah, I mean, this is something we'll talk about on streams even when we're gaming, and I'm always down to talk about it any other time. And I want everybody to have a great evening, and I will be back tomorrow. New World's demo is wrapping up. I have promised a number of people, friend of mine, partner, a bunch of people, we would play that. So I will be definitely playing New World tomorrow, and I will see y'all next time I see you.